Carolina Ortiz Herrera is this week's guest on the Backstage Creative, and this conversation is one that I know you're going to enjoy. Welcome to the Backstage Creative. My name is Krista Copper. This is a podcast all about what goes on behind the scenes of theater. It's about the people who create magic. It's about people who design and make music and run sound and work as technicians, who stage manage, who direct, who do all of the things that make live production so amazing. I am a musician. I've been involved with theater for about 10 years now. And as of recording this in the spring of 2021, I haven't played a show for many, many months, but I'm hopeful. I mean, I know that the summer isn't going to be back to normal for most like summer stock theaters. So I've kind of given up that hope of doing like a summer stock type thing this summer. In that regard, today I planted some herbs and some pepper plants. So I'm giving myself something. I'm making peace with. I'm going to be in Kansas City for the summer. Hopefully I'll do some like hiking and running things. I like to get up to the mountains usually in the summer at some point, but nothing, like several month-long stints that I've done in the past. But that's okay. I'm going to have some really great peppers this summer. I'm going to be using a lot of herbs in my cooking, and it's going to be fantastic. At least this summer, we're all made a little more prepared to be out of work or mostly out of work. There are some people definitely that are doing things, but I for musicians, I know that we're very few of us are working right now. But at least this summer we can be a little more prepared, right? At least I think so, because we've had experience now, right? Like we've already had a summer of not being able to do as much. So, however, I am excited to see. I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to do like more outdoor productions, and we've had experience with not being able to do shows in a theater. But I know one theater I saw on Instagram was talking about that they're doing an all outdoor season, which is, I'm glad that they're doing something. And so I'm excited to see more theaters kind of follow suit maybe and be more creative in how they make theater this summer. All that to say is I encourage you, if you're like me and are kind of thinking like, okay, this summer isn't going to be maybe what I had hoped was going to happen, find something, to give you some hope, find something to give you a little more excitement. Even just something simple like planting some vegetables. But enough about summer. I don't know. I have summer on the mind today. So today the episode is not about my basil plant. It's about Carolina Ortiz Herrera. Carolina is a lighting designer, and this conversation was fantastic. All of the conversations I have are fantastic. I love, this is my lifeline to the theater world. I've loved doing this podcast the past 2.5 years. And, during my conversation with Carolina, I was reminded of why I love doing it, because, technology allows me to meet people and to make connections with people, even though I'm not currently working on any production. But yeah, enough of my semi-depressing ramblings about summer disappointments and not working. Here we go. Here's my conversation with Carolina Ortiz Herrera. What have you been up to this past year during the pandemic?
Oh boy. Where do I even start? It's been a journey for sure, but I was for 5 months at my husband's parents' house. They have a house at a lake in Scranton, and so we spent there 5 weeks at the beginning of the pandemic, and then after that we returned to New York, and I've just been spending a lot of time on looking back at my work and what do I want to do next for sure. I spent some time with my family in LA. I applied for a while. I applied to like different jobs if anything will come up. So it's been like ups and downs, trying to find new hobbies.
Yeah.
So I think it's just been a mixture of like like understanding what's going on or trying to make sense of it, and then just going with the day, like, okay, that day I'm gonna focus on working on the website, or this day I'm gonna focus on acquiring more skills, or this day I'm just gonna read. Like, it really depends on like what's going on outside the world, and like how to respond to so much madness.
Yeah. Yeah, madness is a good word for it. Yeah, it's been the year of hobbies. That's for sure for for most people. I think like those can also impact your work. As hobbies aren't just something that are separate, but they can also impact the work that you do in the art, in theater and music and whatnot. So, what are some of the hobbies that you've been discovering or been pursuing?
One of them, recently, I started doing earrings just because I love jewelry. But a friend of mine recommended the polymer clay, and so I ordered it and started researching, like, just images of like how to make them, and it's fun. I mean, I like it, but also connected to, like, what we do. I love color and mixing colors, and like the combinations of finding, like purple goes with green, like the discovery of it. Sometimes it's what I'm attracted to it by doing the earrings. So that's been fun lately. What other hobby? I think watching movies also.
Hmm.
It's been something that I have enjoyed a lot, and also like I have asked for recommendations of movies that I usually would not pick, and so that has been just like learning different types of storytelling and styles from directors has been something helpful to spend the time during this crazy times.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of movies too, and just reading a lot, and I'm excited like once things start to open back up to see how the downtime that everyone has had to pursue different things, or get different jobs, how that will help the storytelling and help create just a richer storytelling environment. I think it's going to be I think magical things are going to happen, this next year as things hopefully keep opening up.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're gonna come back with a lot of energy, and it's my hope that it brings new places we haven't imagined yet, or like with more meaning to it, to what we're gonna be doing as theater artists.
Hmm. Definitely. I would love to hear about your background, where you're from, how you got into theater, and if you went to school, where you went to school, and just, some highlights that have led you to where you are today.
Yeah, I'm originally from Mexico City, and while I was there, I moved to the States when I was 18 years old. But before that, I feel that I knew right away that I want to do theater with my few interactions that I had back at home in Mexico. And I'm just grateful that I was able to see that, like glimpse of inspiration when like you're seeing theater, and all of a sudden like you know that that's the place that you are gonna continue growing, and that you're gonna find the thing that you love doing. But Mexico, back then, or maybe just because I perhaps I didn't express it as much as I wanted, but I didn't have a lot of interactions with theater. But it was in the back of my mind, right? Like guiding some of the things that I would do in school, and it was until I finished. It's like high school in Mexico, like grade 12, that when you apply to universities was like the big decision to move to the States, because there are not that many theater programs in Mexico. And so for the ones that I apply, I didn't get in, being that, there were many applicants. And so I moved to the States, and I think that my journey as a Mexican immigrant here in the States has defined a lot of who I am today as a theater artist. So I moved to the States. I went first to community college where I got more engaged with the backstage theater because first I thought I wanted to be a director, and I was taking directing classes, acting classes in community college, but I got involved in backstage theater because I needed to pay for the classes. So that was like a lot of work that I could be doing to pay for those classes. So I started to notice lighting. I guess, and also I tell the story that the way I started to notice lighting was because I was going through the process of, learning a new language, learning a new culture, and in that process, all of a sudden, I didn't have the words to express fully, and so and trying to be able to express, I found lighting as a medium to do it, just because lighting expresses in that way without words. It has a different ways to communicate and to connect with people in terms of when we see it on stage. So that's why I think I started noticing when I was working backstage and when I was doing a lot of these shows that light was capable of doing that. So that's how I found lighting. And after attending community college, I applied for the theater program at UCLA, and I transferred there and did 2 years. I wish that at UCLA back then they would give more opportunity to undergrads to do design. There were not that many opportunities, and I think the emphasis of the degree was more just class based. So I started to chat with the graduate students at the program, and so I was like, how do I get experience, because I only have 2 years, and like I haven't been able to practice it a lot, right? And so because I started to be more interested in lighting, I needed to have practice and experience. And so I made friends with one grad student, Cameron Mock, and he just took me in, and I started assisting him in his shows at the grad school. And after I graduated from UCLA, I started working with him as an assistant for I think 2 years and a half. And so I'm grateful that I was able to have someone as a mentor that would allow me to have the experience that I couldn't find at UCLA. And after those 2 years and a half, I decided that I needed to learn more to fully focus on lighting and to get more expertise on the craft. And so I applied for grad school at Yale School of Drama, and I spent three years there, which were amazing and painful as grad school it is. And I think that it was the best decision to do in terms of expanding my knowledge on the craft, and finding ways to translate those initial impulses of why I fell in love with lighting to define it at grad school in terms of like, this is why I do lighting. And yeah, it's been, I think, 4 years if we count 2020, since I graduated from Yale School of Drama. So, and then moved to New York, and that's where I am right now.
Mm-hmm. I don't know much about like the theater scene in Mexico. Are there a full-time theater? Like, what's the theater scene like in Mexico?
Oh, there's a lot of theater happening there. I think that when I was when I was 18, I feel like I didn't knew of the theater culture in Mexico. Like I didn't have access to it, and so I left thinking that there was not there. So but right now, as as I became more connected to it, I had find that, I mean, there's like a lot of theaters, and they just do all kinds of things, truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never thought about like what the theater scene is like in Mexico. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that I can get more connected back to the kind of theater that it's done in Mexico. I haven't been able to to come back and work there, but I wish that one day that is possible, because I mean, I heard that like it's amazing work that they're doing too, and so it would be interesting to come back and see it from all this experience that I had in here in the US, and going back and see it from other perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Um, so you mentioned being immigrating here when you were 18 had a big impact on who you became as an artist. Talk more about that. Like how did immigrating from a different country impact how does it impact the work that you do as a lighting designer?
Yeah, I think that moving to another country when you are that old, it just puts you in the perspective. It's almost like it puts you outside of yourself, looking at who you are in a new place with a new culture and a new language. Like I found myself trying to make sense of who I was all of a sudden Mexican, right? Because when I was growing up in Mexico, like I wasn't aware that I was being Mexican, because I was, just surrounded by all other Mexican people. But
Uh-huh.
here it was like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I am Mexican, and not only that, but there's all of these assumptions of who I am supposed to be
Mm.
as a Mexican, female, and how am I supposed to behave, or like what expectations are from people that I engage with. So all of a sudden, I was just very aware of that identity. And so for me, understanding that that identity can be a construct of an outside world, not only from within, but also it's a construct of what the world is telling you to be, or all of these assumptions influencing your life. It's what inspires me to do the work that I want to do, in terms of I'm interested in the in between, living in that intersectionality of identity, and how stories can explore or can reveal more of beyond those assumptions, beyond those constructs about identity. And so the way it influence in terms of lighting, I always see lighting as a way to be able to connect at a universal level. I feel like sometimes language is a barrier to connect to
Mm-hmm.
each other. But with lighting, I believe that it makes you go into a space where words are not needed. And so if you just let yourself go in that journey, emotional journey, that light will take you with the storytelling that is happening as well. It puts the audience, everyone, at that level of universal connection, like no need for words. The need to express without words, it transfers in terms of like what I want lighting to allow the audience to experience, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. And I'm a musician, and so I feel that. Like I've had the privilege of making music with people who we can't communicate with by our language, but we can play together, and it's a wonderful thing. I think that art can so wonderfully bridge that gap between cultures and different languages. And yeah, it's a privilege to be able to communicate without words.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like also part of why I decided to do lighting and not other area in terms of design. It was part of like me learning another language and realizing that in a way language also limitates the way that you engage with the world, right? Like all of a sudden I found myself caught in like, well, that translation doesn't really express what I wanted to say. So then what else can do it, or how else I can express it? And so that's why I found enlightening seeing how it will affect people and in the theater, and how it will allow to transform the whole space is what made me go with it.
Mm-hmm. So when you're designing, and you're trying to choose like colors and timing of, and is it something that's kind of instinctual, like you just kind of know, like, okay, I want to do like a green tint here or something, or is it something that have you had to kind of develop, okay, this sort of lighting is going to have the biggest impact? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think that it goes a little bit with like I'm not just by myself in the room making these decisions, right? Like it has to do with the collaboration process and with the design conversations that happen, that hopefully happen before going into tech. And so I feel like it's the process of collecting all of these ideas that we have been discussing as a team to consider the story that we're trying to tell. And for me, I think that once we arrive to the space, obviously we can imagine how the lighting will be, but once we get into the space, there's a little bit of adaptation in terms of how lighting is behaving with all the elements now there on stage. And so it is a little bit of like having in consideration all those discussions about design, and then reacting in the moment of like, oh, we talk about the design wanted to feel like period, and so at the moment with all of the elements, how do I make that happen? And the same thing with timing, right? Sometimes it will be dictated by like, oh, there's a sound that is indicating the transition from one place to another one. Do I go with the sound, or do I go with the sound but I also try to coordinate with the director if we can all make all the changes of actors and sound together so that the light can unify all of those elements. So yeah, it's a combination, but it's always trying to have present, right, the story that we're trying to tell, and with the ideas that we discuss as a team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you're collaborating with a team, how do you strike that balance between your individual voice and your thoughts on what should happen, and the greater team picture? Like, how do you let your voice be a part of the collaboration, but also like submit to the group idea?
I always try to keep in mind that I'm contributing to that greater goal. Because it's different as like what painters do, right? Or sculpture. Like the difference between those kind of artists and ourselves as designers for theater is that our work depends and is influenced by all other elements. I want to have that as a priority, because otherwise, if I try to push too much for my own ideas, then it's becoming more of like, well, this is what I think and this is what it should be, as opposed to like how the greater goal can be supported by some of these ideas that I have. Having in mind the greater goal and how I can support that is the question that I always try to ask myself, so that it doesn't fall on like, well, this is my idea and I want to pursue it. It is the reverse question, how I am supporting the greater goal with this idea. And if this idea doesn't work, then I open up for the room to say, I thought this will work, but do we have more ideas? Like, do you think that this is working? I open up the room for discussion, and also like it's instinct, right? In terms of you're seeing something that is not working, and it was suggested that maybe that's the answer, but you still feel that is not working. I feel like the important thing to do that there is to open up conversation, to ask more questions, just to understand why are we going to that direction, and say I still feel like there's missing something, or it still doesn't quite work, and see if talking to the director and asking more questions that will then clarify the intention of that moment.
It's like there's like a humility to it. When I think of theater, I sometimes think about like all of the big personalities, right? And the divas and the, kind of eccentric people that you meet who work in theater. And but there's also like you really have to lay aside your ego, I think, when you work in theater, because there's so many people involved and there's so many moving parts, and we're all just a small part of a bigger whole. And so I think, yeah, I'm struck again while you're talking about how as theater artists we have to be humble and we have to, hold our ideas loosely because there's something bigger going on.
Yes, I agree. And we have to adapt, right? Like those ideas have to be fluid and able to adapt right there at the moment with when everyone is watching you. It's like, well, that did not work. Let's try something else really quickly because they might be waiting on you. And so, as lighting designers and also sound designers, like since we're doing the work right there, it it is important to be flexible as well. Like if those ideas that you had that were gonna work now all of a sudden don't make sense, then you need to find something else, and you need to make it work with the tools that you already have in the room, because they cannot wait. The show must go on, and they cannot wait for you to add, I don't know, 5 more lights to make the idea happen. So yeah, I agree with you. It's been humble, and also opening for new ideas that maybe you didn't think of it. And that's what I'm excited about. I like when I work with directors and collaborators that bring to the table something that it was not expected of, that I did not think when I was reading the script of, or like it's a total different direction. And that's what I love about the collaborations, that when all of a sudden new ideas that you never thought of come to the table, and then they become something else with all of the ideas involved as well. So yeah, that's the exciting part that I can't wait to go back to.
Me too. Does that get stressful when you're like in tech week and you're, basically doing your design while everyone's like kind of watching and waiting for you? Does it ever get stressful?
Yeah, I mean, I think that each show will always give me that like you feel it in your body, like, oh my god, everything is happening and I'm being watched, definitely. But as a lighting designer, I feel like I need to stay calm in the room, right? And have that vibe of like everything is fine and we're just going into tech and we're gonna do the job, right? I Because otherwise, if I show that as stress, or then I think that the room will feel it. And so and also as excitement, I think, is also excitement of seeing things that you've been thinking of, that they are in on paper, but once you see them on stage, they look different, or they're interacting different. And so I think it's excitement, and but also the stress of like you want to make sure that you move the room at a pace to be able to reach the goal for the day, right? Which is try to take 10 scenes, or finish taking the whole show, things like that. So it's important to stay calm, yeah, even though there's a storm inside you. Yeah.
Attitudes are so contagious. I think about that all the time when I'm in the pit, because you're in this small space. And if there's one person in the pit that's grumpy or rolling their eyes or just doesn't want to be there, it can have such a negative impact on everyone else in the pit. And then, I mean, that spills out into the entire room too. And so, in theater, when we're all working so closely together and usually small spaces, yeah, your attitude affects everyone, and attitudes are so contagious.
Yes. Well, and we forget that we're working in a team, right? And I think also we forget that whatever we're doing, if we start using bad attitudes, then that will contribute to the final product. And perhaps not in ways that are desired, or also just like it will not make it fun, right? We're supposed to have fun at work and in doing it. And I just think that it does not help to have the coming to work with those attitudes, because the job is already hard in terms of trying to create this thing. And so it doesn't add anything to it.
Yeah, a bad attitude just makes a hard job even more difficult.
Yes.
Where do you find inspiration for your designs?
I mean, it depends. I think that I search imagery for the plays that I do. It depends. Like if it's music based, I just like listen to the music a lot. Whatever that music is making me feel at the moment, then I try to look images at the same time and trying to listen to music of the show. But mainly, I think I made a Pinterest gallery of the show, of initial reactions to it. And yeah, and then after I have initial conversations with the director, that's what I go back to the initial gallery that I had made. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of similar to what the director was talking about. And then some imagery is like, okay, maybe that does not work for for the show that we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, how about where do you mentioned making earrings has helped you grow in your artistry. Is there anything else that you do to kind of keep your creativity or your design sensibility like sharp and growing?
Well, I would say that at this time, I had focused on two things. I wish I could focus more on that artistic sensibility, but at the moment, I had a focus on two things that are important to me. And one of them, it's been reacting to the times and to the ask for building a better industry. I had put a lot of time to working with La Gente, the Latinx Theater Network. I don't know if you have heard about it, but after George Floyd dead, for me was like a call to just like not stay on my phone and connect with people, because I feel like technology and social media has allows for a kind of connection, but that is not that close or deep.
Yeah.
And so I shifted focus on working towards you know making sure that I was doing that could impact more people, and staying away from the comfort of like being at home and just like participating on my phone. But I felt that that wasn't enough at the time, and so that's why I shifted my focus on doing that advocacy work to respond to those times. And the second thing I've been focusing, it's been just reflecting a lot on what is next, what are the things that I want to do next in my career, and also questioning the why we do theater, which I think it's been, I mean, this time has been perfect to rethink why theater, right? Because I feel like as I advance in the career, and also like things change in terms of like why I wanted to do theater in the first place, but now why I want to do theater. And I think that just questioning those things and defining the why, it will make a clear vision of me as an artist. And so that's where I've been spending my time.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much on how to put more time on the artistic sensibility, but I think for me it's important to define those values to make the kind of work that I want to do next.
Yeah, that's understandable. My why, like why I play, why I make music and why I participate in the industries that I do has changed over the years too, and I think that's okay. Like I think your why and your motivation for why you do what you do should evolve as you get older, and it I think should evolve after a pandemic because I think we like it needs to be different now. And I mean the pandemic has obviously like been tragic and it's taken away so much from so many from everyone really, but I think it's given some really good space for our industry to reflect and to hopefully make some changes when things start opening up more. And so yeah, I think there's space for good things to come out of this, and I hope that as an industry we take hold of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that even though the pandemic has been a huge, I don't even know what to describe, but like,
Yeah.
it has shut down our industry. We never seen this before. But my hope as well is that we come back with the desire to do better, and
Yes.
and especially because theater is that place to
Hmm.
be able to do it. I mean, I do believe in theater as a way to change, to transform. And so I think that is the perfect place to put those new ideas and tell those new stories that hopefully will allow us to connect to each other, because that's what we need.
Hmm.
We live in a very individualistic world, I think, and we are attached to our phones and technology, and so we had forgotten how to really connect with humans at a more deeper level than just liking an image on Insta.
Yes, agreed. Tell me more about La Gente. I haven't heard of that network. What are some of the things that they do?
Yes, it is pronounced, I don't know, la gente.
La Gente, okay.
La gente, yes. And there was a Facebook group that Regina Garcia, set designer and educator, started back in, I believe, 2017 and it was just like a platform for designers, technicians, and stage managers to discuss subjects of interest. In the summer of 2020, we had a huge meeting just to like listen to concerns and things that we are concerned in terms of Latinx representation in the theater industry. And so we decided have a name for the group and to formalize the network with the name of La Gente. And so we are working towards increasing visibility and representation and advocacy for Latinx theater designers, technicians, and stage managers. We had a couple initiatives, but also we launched our Instagram account last September, and with the idea to promote and showcase the work of designers and technicians and stage managers. And in June of this June 2021, we're going to launch our website, which we will include a online directory and a search tool for our members to showcase the work as well, but also to connect with employers and for them to have a tool to search members of our community. And these all became just because of the lack of representation of Latinx theater artists in the American theater industry. So it's exciting. It's exciting the work that is happening, and we hope to grow and create more initiatives. But at the moment, we're focusing on creating the website.
That's very exciting. I love initiatives like that, and what are some others like Broadway Black, the Women on Broadway Fund. Sometimes I hear the excuse of, oh, I don't know any women to hire for the pit, or I don't know of any minorities to design my show. But I love that there's people and organizations that are like, well, here's some lists that we made. So now you don't have excuses anymore to say like, oh, all I know is white people, when there's resources out there that are highlighting different people that are not kind of the traditional or standard designers and theater practitioners. So I love to hear of initiatives like that.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I agree with you that one of the things that I find kind of crazy when they say, oh, there's just not people of color qualify for these kind of jobs. And we're trying to demystify that, like there's been other initiatives as well, trying to show that there's just so many theater artists out there, BIPOC theater artists that have the qualifications, that are so talented, ready to do the work. And I think that is important to see them, to be able to stop saying that there's none. And so that's what La Gente is trying to do as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very important. I love that. Awesome. So my last question that I like to ask is, what advice would you give to young people who want to be lighting designers?
Always make having in mind, or like a clear vision of what you want to do to get to that point as lighting designer, right? Like always having in mind the reason why and how I get there will inform your decisions, or it will inspire to look opportunities. I feel like if you're not clear of like what you want to do, then it's kind of hard to see the direction, the opportunities to be able to practice that. But specifically for lighting designers, I think that if you already find light as something that you want to get involved with in terms of communicating ideas, because light it's a medium to be able to communicate ideas. If you are sure that you want to do that, trying to do other things that are related with light, so that you start understanding how this I call it a living force, because it reacts so differently with with all the elements surrounded by it. So if you do other things that are involved with light, then you will have an appreciation of how light is able to shape the experiences and shape the way we see the world. So yeah, like do photography, or try to be more attentive in terms of like how life behaves through your window. Just like being an observant of light, I think it will give you that sensibility as a lighting designer.
The music for the Backstage Creative was improvised and performed by Ian Leroy, and the logo was designed by Carly Wagner.